Welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and happy spring. It's officially spring, although, as we might have told you before on the podcast, Newfoundland is not really renowned for its, how shall we say, weather.
It's been 20 degrees one day this week.
Yeah.
Which, to be clear, in March, fills me with fear.
Yeah. Well, I was reading just, for context for our viewers, like our listeners too. This week in Newfoundland and the previous week, we've had, in St. John's in particular, we've had some, 14, 15 degree weather. It's Celsius days. And the last time that happened in St. John's was 1936. So, it's been a while.
To see here, kids.
Yeah. But what's really interesting for us is that all of the snow that we've had over the winter is basically completely gone. There's a little bit of snow that remains in some areas, like in wooded areas where there's not a lot of sunlight, but everywhere else you can't see any snow. And so in March, I should say, so this is the end of March, we're already having talks with the frontline outdoor field manager to see when can we reopen for the outdoor season, which historically we really haven't done until at the very, very earliest would be May.
Oh, yeah,
and most years is like June, realistically.
Yeah, this is weird.
Yeah.
But if it continues, like, sweet, longer airsoft season.
Yeah, there's a very real potential of us, starting open games in April, right? Which, we've really haven't done. Like, historically, many years ago, we've talked about this on the podcast before, the Battle for Stalingrad event that Frontline used to hold was around St. Patrick's Day weekend, which is March, like, 17th, 18th, around there. And typically at that event, like, it was always snow-filled, right? We always had...
accompanied by waist-deep snow.
Definitely. And, they haven't done those events in, I'm going to say at least 10 years at this point. It's definitely been quite a while since they did it. But so we haven't really played in the winter, but definitely this year there would have been no snow for that event. And certainly as we're looking forward, we're thinking maybe we'll only have a pause from outdoor airsoft for roughly like 3 months this year, which is pretty crazy for us.
Yeah,
so
that's very strange. Like, positive.
Yeah.
I guess. Just weird.
And I know some of the other local guys have still been playing outdoors and playing at. Some people are still playing at Redcliffe, fairly regularly. Which
playing up there in the winter is,
but we haven't really had much of a winter, so
that's true.
Props to them. But
has been less wintry.
Yeah, and so with the advent of spring now, we're really shifting our mindset, I guess, to what this airsoft season is going to bring. So today, Pat and I thought we would have a bit of a conversation around what that looks like for us as well, in terms of like new stuff that's coming down the line, and some of the stuff we're looking forward to. So that's what we're going to do today. Bring the spring cleaning episode. Talk a little bit. I was speaking of spring cleaning, and just completely randomly, my garage and workbench is in a complete state. Which I know, laughing with Pat because his workbench is always a complete state, but he knows that my workbench typically is a bit less of a complete state, but over the winter stuff just sort of like piles and piles and piles in there. So yeah, there's a bit of spring cleaning.
Uncategorically the more organized one, as I'm sure anyone who's like even vaguely looked behind me knows.
But that's not setting the bar very high. But regardless,
it really isn't.
Yeah, I have.
I'm organized professionally, but that takes work.
Yeah, I received a care package from Flamingo over the winter, and I just stored it right on my workbench. But now I'm looking back at it, going like, okay, it's time to do something with that. And you guys will hear all about that hopefully sooner rather than later. Now that we have access to the outdoor area, so I can do some bit more testing and filming. But that's for another conversation.
Meanwhile,
for today,
I'm like, pick me.
Yeah, today we'll really focus on sort of what this season's looking like. So. Yeah, Pat, I did not expect to be having this conversation that early, as I said.
It's definitely wild. So I know, and our listeners probably don't, that you are working on 3 games you're organizing. Currently.
Well, 2 games in one event, really. But yeah. Yeah, so we're looking at, and to be honest, I really thought that the event was going to be the first event of the year when I designed it, and turns out it's not. But regardless,
I mean, your planning there was pretty reasonable. Like you,
yes,
what do you mean we're starting in April?
yeah,
But
yeah. So I decided this year to revive the airsoft endurance race, which is something that we did in 2020. Which, if you all remember, that was the height of the pandemic, and
airsoft
yeah,
is socially distanced.
airsoft, well, it is socially distanced, but at the same time, like we frontline was not open at the time.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, businesses
And
were prohibited from being open at the
yeah,
time, so like,
yeah.
you know,
And so what we decided to do was organize basically like an obstacle course, where the participants would run this obstacle course and stop at various stations to perform some sort of like task. It could be shooting or whatever. And the whole idea was that, you know, we called it endurance, but I mean, fundamentally, it's not a long effort. It's just really hard for a short period of time. And, you know, it's inspired by like obstacle courses that you see on like, you know, tough guy soldier stuff and blah blah blah. And we did it, and at the time it was really just
come join
me.
us and suffer for fun.
Yeah, exactly. And this was before I was an ultra runner, like any of that stuff. But it was really ended up just being me, Johnny, and Chris who ran the course. And Chris and I did it twice, and I think Johnny did it once. And we were all like completely wiped after every course. And so now, having looked at the community that we have at Frontline, and you know how we have like newer players and players who are looking for different experiences, uh, I said, well, you know, what odds? You know, shag it. Let's give it a go and let's reset this. Make a couple of modifications. I mean, you were involved with it last time, and so you
Yeah,
sort of knew how it was. But like, there's a couple of improvements we could have made, and sort of just give it another go, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the resources and thus level of professionalism that is possible for something like that we're running now is higher than 10 years ago. Like,
Yeah,
you know, or 5 years ago.
5 years ago. 5 years ago. Yeah.
You know, and like I think that, you know, not to say that it wasn't pretty well put together, because in a lot of senses I think it was pretty well put together. But like Chris knows a fair bit about a bunch of different kinds of sort of like weightlifting, physical stuff, and you are pretty solid on the running. So like we probably have a better plan or a better available set of skills to plan physical challenges than we did then.
Yeah, we wanted to, and I mean, we're still going to do a lot of the common stuff that you see on like an obstacle course. So obviously, running, like the whole idea behind the endurance event is that you have a set course, and it's around Redcliffe, and we don't mind doing that at any time because it doesn't matter if there's like hikers, or because we're not shooting at each other.
Yeah, absolutely right. It
Right,
doesn't
we
involve
have
any.
full control over it, so it's easy peasy. But the whole idea is that it utilizes the natural terrain at Redcliffe, which involves descending and ascending, and
Some of which is quite a steep jump in elevation too. Right?
definitely.
So,
And so you layer on the fact that you're wearing all of your kit, whatever your normal kit is, and you're running with your replica, and your replica is ready to go because you're going to be doing some shooting drills at the same time. And the whole idea is like you will, so when we had it last time, you would start and you would run to the first like station, which was basically a pylon that had a weight. It was like a 25-pound weight, and you'd pick up the weight with one hand, and then you would run to the next station. But that was running down steps that were along like the trail,
yep.
pretty steep. And like when Chris would do it, he would full on run. He didn't care. I wouldn't. I wasn't like comfortable enough with that weight, so I would just walk down the steps, whatever. And then you run to the next station, which was going through the woods, but it was like a low crawl. So we had set up like trail flagging tape horizontally about like, you know, I don't know, 2 feet off the ground or something like that, so that you had to get underneath it, and you had to get underneath it with your kit and crawl all the way. And then when you get out of there, then what we had done is we had set up some targets on like metal, well, like I say metal, but it's like those those tinfoil plates or whatever, so that when a BB hits it, you can hear it, and it's about 50 feet. And so you would come out of the crawl and basically get up to the station.
Now that you're nice and shaky.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then you would go and you would shoot 2 shots standing, 2 shots kneeling, 2 shots prone, 2 shot kneeling, 2 shot standing, and then you would turn around.
This is the airsoft burpee.
Well, yeah, kind of. But then you would run up the hill game objective that we used to have. And when, again, really steep, you would get to that objective, you turn around, we had 2 targets that you had to shoot, and then you'd keep running up the hill, and then you turn, and then you'd go to the octagon building. And you were at that station, if my memory serves me correctly, where we had someone in there, I think it was Jeremy, and we had given him a set of targets on sticks. And so basically we had told him to put...
Man holds target out window.
Yeah, put 1 target out of either side of windows of him. And we had told the players that they had to shoot the red target. So we had a red target and a blue target, right? And so we had done that.
Can you still distinguish color after running this far?
And also, like, normally when you see red, red is no-go. Right? So, but we said you have to shoot the red target. So do you remember to do that? And then you had to shoot the right target and then go back to the road. And then when you got to the road, we had the final drill was you had to pick up the 25-pound weight or whatever, and you had to throw it as far as you could. And then wherever it would land, you would run to it, and then you would shoot a target from there, pick up the weight, throw it again, and you would rinse and repeat until you cross the entire distance, and then you would sprint to the finish. And I think Chris had the best time around like 5-something minutes, if my memory serves me correctly, and I was probably around like 9 minutes or something, which was absolutely grueling. So we're going to be doing something again similar this year, and it's going to be interesting to see who all decides to come out for it. I mean, it's a free event, right? We have some people in our community who I think are really fit, and like we have Definitely. Some young guys who are eager to prove themselves. We have some people who want to challenge themselves, and I'm really, really hoping that there are people who show up and get a rude awakening. That's really what I want. And I think for all of these events, I think a big part of the challenge is abutting against your own limitations. I think there's something fun. I mean, obviously it's not type 1 fun, it's like type 2 fun, but there's something fun about being able to do something and say like, wow, like I literally could not have done any more than I did. Like I left everything on the table, right? And so I'm hoping that people sort of take up the challenge and come for a laugh. Because I mean, like realistically, like you come out, you do 1 loop, and you're like, wow, I never want to do that again. Cool, right? Fine. What does this cost you? Like 10 minutes? Fine,
yeah, and
right?
It's definitely a try to leave your ego at the door.
Yeah, so that should be really fun. And as a side note, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I read a stat fairly recently that said like over 80% of adults over the age of 35 will never sprint in their life again. Right? And so, when you think about that, like it's so, for me especially, like, and you and I, like we both turned 40 in the last couple of months, like there is this temptation to in some ways to like succumb to your own age, and being able to run an event like this and be like, yeah, whatever, like I'm going to try and do something completely crazy, push myself to a breaking point or whatever that is sort of like defying that in a way
totally,
too.
Yeah. I mean, like it's one of those things where I feel like that concept was not written with people like us in mind. In the sense that like, yeah, I'm not the most fit human in the world, but like I do, sword fighting for fun. Like I do get cardio, believe it or not. And I do also seek ways to make sure to make sure that I'm having some type 2 fun.
Yeah.
And like often, I guess not presently, often have the bruises to show for it. But like, I mean, frankly, the reason I feel like you have to try to leave your ego, and like I'll find this hard. I'm going to try to do it, assuming my arm doesn't fall off partway through the process or something. But like,
I mean, if it does, just pick it up and keep going, dude. Like sure. It's fine.
Slap the next guy with it, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, traditionally, I find stuff like this hard because like I'm not as fit as some people who are going to be doing it, and I find that embarrassing. So I'll try to push myself to do it and take it as an opportunity to laugh at myself.
Well, and I think there's the thing about it is like at the end of the day, it takes guts to just line up for something like that, right? Like this is an opportunity that is being presented to people where it's like, hey, we're gonna get you to do something that's gonna be really hard, right? Or I mean, maybe it won't be hard. Maybe you're the kind of person like Chris or whatever who is super fit, and guess what? It was still hard for him too, right? So like,
I remember him being like, "Oh God," and then being
I've
like,
looked at his footage.
I'll do it again, but also,
Like when he crosses the finish line, he literally falls over, right? He just like the camera's just looking straight up. So like, but it, it takes guts to say, hey, I'm gonna do this thing that I know is gonna be very hard for me, or in your case, I'm gonna do this thing that not only is it gonna be very hard for me, but it is going to put in sharp relief just how deficient I am compared to other people, and knowing that, still go ahead and do it.
yeah,
Right? Like I think, and I fully expect you to give it a shot. And however long it takes is however long it takes. Like who cares, right? You're gonna get through it.
what's the date of this again?
It's it's on June 1st, I believe.
Just checking for my obituary,
Yeah. Yeah. We'll make sure your insurance policies are full in effect.
Pay up the life insurance, pre-carve my own headstone.
Yeah.
He died as he lived, stupidly.
Yes, exactly. But I would hope that for people who are listening, who maybe you don't have the opportunity to do something like this in your community or whatever, and that's fair. But there's definitely there's a lot to be said for having the guts to sign up for something tough, knowing that failure is definitely an option, right? And I would say in situations where failure is possible, that makes your success even more valuable, right? Because if failure was never an option, then your success is meaningless, right?
Yeah,
because if your success was guaranteed, there's no, you're not taking any risk, you're not doing anything. And I mean, I get it, it sucks, right? Whether it's you're doing an endurance race like this, or maybe you're signing up for like a road race or a physical event like a Tough Mudder, or like you're signing up for even like, as we're going to talk about in a second, like a type of airsoft event that you're like, I don't know if I'm good enough to do that. I don't know if I'm advanced enough. I don't know if I'm tough enough to do that. Just signing up for it is proving to yourself that, hey, okay, you know what? I'm going to do something, right?
Yeah. And like, it can very much be a let's go try it and push through it or not, like it's one of those things where if you push yourself and you still don't get to the end of the thing, you still pushed yourself. That has value, right? There is not a lot of growth without challenging yourself.
Yeah. And you know what, like did not finish is a real thing, right? Like when I did my my second ultramarathon last year, the East Coast Trail 50, I DNF'd. I did not finish. I quit after 16K because I'm like, if I keep going, I'm going to injure myself.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's
the race director was like, that's a good call. It's like, okay, cool. That's cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, all joking aside, like, yeah, do that one more push-up unless it's going to tear your tendons.
Exactly, right? You got it. Within when I was saying that your arm would fall off and you just pick it up and keep going, like you should not do that thing, right? But you're also smart enough to, like, especially in the context of something like this. I mean, it's it's a very short event. You can just, hey, you know what, I'm done. It's like, that's cool. But anyways, my point is to say, again, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, you know what, that's cool, but I would never be able to do something like that. Yes, you would. And if you get an opportunity, I would highly recommend doing something of this nature just to see, because I mean, especially for airsoft, like it's cool. Like one of the things that everyone wants, we've talked about this before. Everyone wants to be a Navy SEAL and wants to do the push-ups, right? Like everyone who plays airsoft wants to feel like a hardcore operator, etc. Well, one of the ways you can do that is by wearing all your kit and feeling like you're gonna puke because of the amount of cardio you just had to do. Well, you know what? That is a real part of that experience, I would say, for a lot of people doing PT for the first time in their full fighting attire or whatever. Yeah, so
totally. And joking about it being my funeral aside, it will probably be good for you more rather than the inverse.
Yeah, definitely so. And especially if you decide to use this as motivation ahead of time. I know I told the community about this, shortly after Christmas, I think. So it was like at the end of December, early January when I posted about it. And so it's like, it's 6 months away. Like that gives you loads of time to start like doing stuff with your gear, whether that's even just like You know, like I have a treadmill at home. I know other people have treadmills at home. Like, get on the treadmill with your gear, right? Start doing burpees in your garage with your gear, like all this kind of stuff to, you know, so if you use it as an excuse to get fit, well, then so much the better. And especially when it comes to fitness stuff, nothing really to lose, right? It's all game
Yeah,
at the end of the
exactly,
day, right?
Like, if you get a bit fitter and you can't, you DNF, okay, still a win.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, unless you know injure yourself and do
well,
stupid stuff, and
yes,
as I am want to do.
assuming the arm doesn't fall off,
Yeah,
or other appendage, I guess.
yeah. Listen to your body. That's for sure. So that's really that's the first one that's the first thing that I announced that we were doing this year. But the first actual calendar event is going to be Operation Last Refuge 3, which is going to be on May 17th of this year, and we were Kirby and I were actually talking about this just the other day because he came by for, doesn't really matter, but anyways, we were talking about what are we gonna do for the first airsoft opener of the year, and I was just saying to him like, yeah, you know what, I'm not really worried about it. Maybe we'll just template it off a couple of different games that we've done, and that'll be that. And he's like, I would, they really liked the role players last time. Like, we should do like maybe like a different, like maybe something like Operation Last Refuge. And it sort of hit us both that like really, it's been 2 years since we did Last Refuge 2, because last year we did Touchdown and Phantom Shield,
Yep.
and the year prior we did Last Refuge 2 and Last Refuge Spore Cloud. And so really, since that time, we have many players in our community, in particular, shout out to the whole Terra squad. They only started playing last year, so they did not experience Last Refuge 2.
And they've additionally said they like the sort of more role-playing oriented stuff, so hand meat glove.
Yeah, so looking at using sort of the new lore and universe that we have created since Operation Phantom Shield, so with the association of the Alliance of Confederated Municipalities and the People's Republic of Newfoundland, like keeping that going, and then coming back to Last Refuge as a setup. And the part of the reason for that was in our conversation, like especially for when Kirby and I were chatting, but we've had this conversation many times. The frontline field is challenging to utilize if the village is in play for a team, because whatever team ends up controlling that is going to have a much easier day in general, right?
It creates a fairly like asymmetrical advantage very, very quickly and easily. Like, and fundamentally, since we can't pick it up and move it or take it down, and we don't want to, like, to be clear, it's just, okay, we got to plan around it.
Yeah. And one of the things that really did happen with Last Refuge, I think, is like the villagers were a dynamic balancer in that, like, if they noticed that one team was having a bit of difficulty, they're like, hey, you can cross through the village, and that way you can go and exploit one particular objective a bit more easily. But then, if an hour later that team is doing way better, it's like, no, sorry, you can't come in anymore, or whatever. Like, just dynamically helps shift and give team opportunities.
And it's one of these things where, like, I'm sure there are players who would prefer that game staff not put their finger on the scale, but I'm equally sure that almost all of the players we've ever had will acknowledge that when the game, and this is, I'm sure, true of other fields as well, when a game gets to a point where one team can't win or is, just unable to make effective progress in the game because of the layout of the field and of the game state progressing, it's most people, I think, would pick, yes, manipulate the layout of things, ideally subtly, but manipulate the layout of things rather than, okay, well, we'll end the game 4 hours early. Like,
yes, definitely so. And I think the advantage as well with the villagers is that the other team doesn't know what their enemy has been doing with the villagers. So when you talk about manipulating the scales subtly, I think that's one of the ways you can do that, is because you can just say, oh, well, the other team did this for us. Well, no, they didn't, but they don't need to know that.
Yeah,
right?
It's inherently like obfuscated in a way that You know, because I mean, I reasonably, I think that most of the people who've played any of our ops are aware that if things become too unbalanced, we try to tip it back towards balance so that it stays fun for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the less that's visible, the better,
Yeah,
right?
I agree for sure.
Um, you know, and I think broadly we do an okay job of that. And like, you know, hopefully for people who are local who are watching this isn't sort of like, you know, spoiling what the hot dog is made of. But I think we've talked about this sort of stuff before, so I'm not really stressed about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the villager mechanic is a really good way to do that. It's also a good way to um, allow the villagers, which is usually a bunch of our teammates, to hang out for the day and like shoot the shit and be silly, and still
Yeah.
play some airsoft, which is I think really good for us and is really fun. Um, you know, it's a thing I enjoy a lot. I think it also means that you know, not that I necessarily feel that we actually are, but there's a perception of at times that like having us or too many of us on a team weights the game in the favor of that team. And you know, we've talked again before about the fact that like in some ways that's really just people not realizing when we goof up. Like not have, you know, no one notices when all of us are sitting in the you know, the dead pile laughing at one another,
Mm-hmm.
as much as they do when all of us are, you know, winning together. And I think it does happen equally, but it avoids that perception, and it gives people, you know, a chance for everyone else to sort of like go, oh man, they're not playing, so we can just do our thing and roll and stomp face, and you know, whether, you know, whether I feel like they need to be daunted by us or not, which I really don't. um it's still a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
um and like, yeah, it results in um like immersive gameplay. It results in, you know, emergent gameplay at the same time, which can be really cool. You know, I think back to like the first game we ran where, you know, the kid came up and was talking to you in French because we made just like not out of any plan, just we made that a thing, and it was like, oh, this is brilliant. Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
um you know, but it results in really positive experiences for everyone, so I'm absolutely on board. You know, shock.
Yeah. I do
um
like though that Last Refuge as a series, which I mean is kind of crazy to think about, but it is a series now. Generally tends to have a little bit more of a less serious tone to the villagers. Like the last event that we did, I really tried for the villagers to be more serious, right? It's like the locals are a more serious force. Was there still some shenanigans? Well, Jeremy was involved, so
yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
Um,
it's inevitable.
but I had told him it's like, hey, so we're trying to play this a bit more straight, right? We want it to be a bit more serious, and I think for you know lack of you know better term, like he managed it right,
Oh yeah, totally.
but
Like, you know,
but Last Refuge is the one with like the crazy mayor and Ivan, the guy walking around shouting at people with his binoculars for some stupid reason, and
played by, I'm sure you can all guess.
yeah. Or like the players wanting to come in, but the villagers won't let them in with their replicas, so they have to leave the replicas outside. But they still want them to be armed. So then the villagers like figure out some sort of pool noodle situation. So now they can walk around with these pool noodles, right? Like it has a bit of a less serious flair,
And
which I think
like,
is going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, I mean, I think it's cool to have the sort of more serious side events as well. But
Hmm.
you know, everything is a sometimes food, so being able to alternate is great. And like, I mean, personally, I'm definitely all about not taking this hobby seriously in ways that are fun, but not taking it too seriously in ways that make it less so.
Yeah.
So I'm here for, I mean, in general in life, I'm here for the goofy. You know, so it'll be a laugh. I love the I don't know if it's gone out public yet. I love the poster you've got done up for it,
Yeah.
which
I'm pretty thrilled.
ironically is super serious.
Yeah.
You know, if we like, we need to get like a giant Cookie Monster head that I can just put on for like one of those photos for another one, just by way of leaning into the stupidity as a little. Um,
Yeah. I
but
think it's you know like and so yeah, it's building on all of the the lore and stuff that we've built on before. The tone, of course, is like I said, is going to be sillier. But like at the last event, it was all about the fungus. Like we had created this idea of like the storm fungus and like all this kind of stuff. And so I've kind of done away with that in favor of, I guess, just
It's just the
warlords.
I mean, it's just the fungus died out. It's fine.
Well, yeah, the fungus died out, but it's technically it's a different universe, because back then, if you remember, it was like BLU versus RED. Yep. And this time it is, you know, the PRN versus ACM. And also this event, we're introducing the mercenary faction, which just means like a black team, which is Avalon International. And so they're like PMC. And what's going to be cool with them is that they're going to be attached to one of the two teams, just based on player count, right? But the idea there is that they may or may not have objectives that are different from the team they're attached to.
Oh, cool. So they have sort of the asymmetrical thing where, like, theoretically their side can win or lose, and they can win because they've done their...
Yeah, or like, so for the typical example, which is not one that we're going to use, but the way that I thought about this is like, imagine that ACM is rolling with Avalon International. So they're both fighting the PRN team, right? And so PRN has this like intel case, and ACM and AI want to go and take it and recover it. ACM's objective is recover the intel case and bring it back to the FOB. AI's objective is recover the intel case and destroy it. Right? Yep. So they have competing priorities, but they don't know that they have competing priorities. And so how they actually handle that, you know, like if, you know, the ACM commander tasks the AI team to go recover it, and they recover it and destroy it, they're like, you were supposed to bring it back. Oh, crap, I destroyed it. Sorry, boss. Whatever, right? But then that subtly influences sort of what happens on the background. It's not going to be like game changing, but I think it's going to be, or game breaking, I should say. But it's going to be an interesting little twist, because we have some players who are like, I don't want to get camo, I just want to wear black, and I'm like, well, that's lame, but whatever, fine. So we can make it work. We can set up a team, and eventually, I imagine adding a fourth faction, which is going to be like just like a civilian defense force kind of situation, which is just cities, right?
Jeans and a t-shirt. Exactly, I've realized that if we're going for like the Newfoundland vibe teams, that like the villagers need like sou'westers and like assorted Bayman attire.
Yeah. And well, so for the villagers this time, you know, what I was thinking about is like, okay, so what happened at the end of the last like Phantom Shield? ACM won the day, pushed PRN out of the village, and returned the villagers. So the idea, the lore behind it, right, is that they basically equipped the villagers with all these arms and equipment, small arms, explosives, munitions, etc., and said, hey, this is your village. It's your responsibility now to defend this area for the ACM, right? We're not conscripting you or anything like that, but your job is to back us up in this area. We're leaving the SAM site with you. It's all for you. To support us against the invading PRN. And the villagers go, yes, but, and then the ACM goes off and they continue their campaign, right, leaving this group of people. But then in the interim, they basically become a warlord's gang, right, using all these weapons and munitions, small arms, explosives, etc., to exert their power in the region for money, wealth, etc.
It becomes the land of the Toyota Technical.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe not a Toyota Technical,
Ford
but
Technical.
Surely like a. Well, I was gonna say for like a Dodge Ram, maybe. I don't know, because Newfoundland. But I digress. I think then the whole idea behind the event is, okay, now ACM has to come back and convince these guys to start doing their bidding again, right? And they might have some secret missions on the back end.
But they have guns now,
right? But yeah. Right. And then the PRN still wants to come back to the village. They know that they're not allied. So there's a window for them to come back and influence the villagers in some way. But now the villagers are all like, they're armed to the teeth now. Right. They've got all the guns. They've got all the gear. They don't need help. Right. So what is it that the teams are going to be able to do for them? How are they going to be able to convince them?
What can you offer El Presidente and his heavily armed goons?
Yeah. And, like, I think so although the missions will be, again, although the tone is going to be a bit more silly and whatever, there is definitely going to be a piece here around, like, it's more serious themes around, okay, well, what are the missions going to be like? Well, it's not going to be like, oh, go help me find my donkey anymore. It's going to be like, okay, so this person needs to go. You need to grab this person, or you need to, um, remove them from the equation, so to speak, or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's
So
a little more serious in tone, but with some of the lightheartedness.
yeah, exactly. And like how that happens, and like the interactions with the villagers are still going to be silly, all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be cool. I'm very much looking forward to it. And the advantage is, from an organizational standpoint, it's a formula that we know, right? So all of the rules that we've done, that we've really developed and refined since the last time we did this event, like with respect to full auto being for SSWs only,
Yeah,
right? With respect to the medic system that we use, which I think is actually perfectly acceptable now,
yeah, no, I think
for the frontline use, like
you
all that
should
stuff.
you shared the rules document with me there last week, like the sort
Mhm.
of, I guess, what's really probably going to be our template rules document going forward,
Mhm.
for most stuff, and like it's perfect. It covers everything in a really intelligible and useful way, and like it is really just sort of the stuff that's worked over the last many years.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm
So
pretty
and
confident in it.
yeah, and one of the things is also, in talking to the outdoor manager Mike Keats, like I think we're also, in a way, like we're kind of done hand holding, and we're also moving beyond some of the things. Like one of the things that was very important for Mike, as the manager of the outdoor field initially, was to be able to allow walk-ons, right? If you show up the day of, you can play. And we basically had a conversation that says that's not happening anymore. We're not allowing walk-ons, because people need to attend a safety briefing. We had situations, actually, that happened last year where players showed up late, not having attended either briefing, and were still let on the field. And the reason for that is, logistically, I can explain why that happened. It's because the only person who knew who had attended the safety briefings was me, because there is no requirement on the frontline, like, management side of things, to say, did you attend a safety briefing? Yes, your waiver is signed, but you don't necessarily sign your waiver at the briefing. You can sign the waiver online. And so he didn't have a way to know whether the person did the safety briefing. And then when that player went to go on the field, the ref who was manning the actual, like, the entry to the field would just basically be like, hey, which team are you on? And he would say, oh, well, it's tan, or I'm green. It's like, okay, well, tan, go to the village, or green, go to wherever.
Yeah,
And that was it. And because I'm not there, that person, or those people, I should say, because it was more than one person, there was a few people, were just able to take the field. And I said to Mike, I'm like, we actually can't have that happen anymore, for a couple of reasons. One, we don't want people taking the field who don't know the rules of the game and how everything's supposed to play, which is one thing. But more importantly, as a business, you cannot have people go onto your field if they haven't been told what the safety rules are. Right? Like
yep.
that should be a complete non-starter. And Mike was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like we can't do that.
And like,
So,
I think,
yeah.
I feel like I said this last year at the end of the season, but like, I think there's a genuine place in terms of like the scale of event and like the organizational stuff that we're doing for like, like bring out the folding table, set up a genuine, like, sign up here and have someone man it, and like if game start is at 9 based on previous experience, probably have like one of us hanging out there till like 10:30, because people, and like, like, not in a mean way, people are late, shit happens, just to prevent that from occurring. Because I mean, the safety brief wasn't lengthy or like challenging to absorb. It's just a matter of, we want to make sure people actually get it. And the safety brief in this case also includes a rules brief, which is relevant as well. When you're going like, okay, so here's our medic system. Okay, the medic system makes really good sense. It works really well, but it does take a minute to explain.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and even just like, this is the objective of the game. Like, this is what you're supposed to do, right? And if you're a walk-on, like a renter, someone needs to explain that to you. Otherwise, you're not gonna have a good time. So that's, and I take your suggestion about like making sure that we're adequately manned. The advantage with Last Refuge is that y'all are staff, so it's very easy for me. as opposed to Phantom Shield, where I was trying to get as many of you playing as possible. So that makes it more complicated because now you're on the field. Whereas
Yeah,
at Last
totally.
Refuge, I could be like, hey, I need, 2 people to do this and like whatever.
Yeah,
So
well, I'm like,
yeah,
having just sort of like, I think you just had functionally probably one less warm body than you needed for the
yeah,
last one. And like, not in a like critical way, just, yeah, you were trying to get everyone who you could possibly get playing to play, which was wicked. For this, that won't be an issue.
yeah. So yeah, and I mean, realistically too, like I don't know of any event, like serious event, the airsoft event that you can go to and just not buy a ticket for. You have to buy a ticket,
Yeah.
right? And so, and when I was talking to Mike about it, he was like, "Yep, that makes complete sense. We can certainly do something." So the event poster I prepared says it on. It's like pre-registration is required. That's it.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
cannot show up day of.
yeah, I mean, like, with like 40 or 50 people, like it's not problematic in terms of the economics of it either, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sign up.
Yeah. And so yeah, so that's the first event, first airsoft game, like OPC, like event game. We've got that, which is going to be May 17th, which is earlier than I ever thought was going to be possible, but I'm very grateful for that. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's
that is astonishingly early, but
yeah,
like should be super so sick. Like,
yeah. And because it's a template, we know the formula, it's not going to require too much prep work on our behalf. Like we're going to have a few conversations about like the villagers situation, but the actual gameplay, like we know we're just going to deploy what we've done before. And for many players, they will be the first time experiencing that anyway. So
yeah,
that's
and
that's
like
great.
it's also one of those things where the feedback the last time we ran using that formula was really good.
Yeah,
So
exactly right.
yeah, it should be uh you know pretty chill. It means that like we want to make sure, I guess, from a team, team tech point of view, I guess we need to make sure all of our shit's, good to go by earlier than usual this year. But like
Well, but I
that still
mean, we
gives you a
might be
month and a
playing in
half.
April,
Yeah,
so
exactly, right. And it's
right,
even
yeah,
and even
yeah.
if we're not, like, if it's the first thing, like first real airsoft game of the season for some, like, as it turns out, then it's still like, oh yeah, we needed to get our shit together, like whatever.
Mhm. And then the second big thing that I have planned for this summer is likely going to be in June, although I don't have a set date for it at this time, but I'm looking at probably Saturday, June the 14th, realistically, is going to be Operation Silent Resolve. And Operation Silent Resolve is the very first, to my understanding, the very first serious MILSIM event that will have ever been held in Newfoundland and Labrador. So airsoft milsim, I should say. I don't know if there have been paintball milsims or like whatever, but like for airsoft, this is going to be the first real, like legit milsim West style kind of serious milsim. Now, we have, of course, some limitations given the nature and the size of our community, as well as the size of the area that I've been able to secure to do this event. So I've been able to work with a landowner to get a plot of land approximately 8 acres in size,
Still
which is
significantly bigger than we're used to.
yeah,
Like,
it's about twice the size of Frontline, which is pretty good. I mean, it would be great if it were bigger, but at the same time, our community is not very big. So
um,
if we had, we could get a field that's like 40 acres, but like, what are you going to do? You're not going to fill it
yeah, like
with,
eight acres.
40 players or
8
whatever,
acres
right?
is enough for 40 people to get lost in, like, sort of.
Well,
um
yeah, I think what we have going here is going to be good enough for them. As far as I'm concerned, like what I'm planning is a 10-hour continuous milsim event. And I know that people are like, oh, well, if it's only 10 hours, it's not a real milsim. And it's like, well, I understand that for sure. The intent of this is to, in that 10 hours, recreate as much as possible a light infantry experience. And so everything that we are going to be doing in this event is going to be really focused on what are typical operations for a dismounted light infantry, in our case, squad. We could say like a section, a plussed up squad, whatever you want to call it. Realistically, we're probably going to end up getting, I'm guessing, 10 to 15 players per side. That's really what I'm expecting. And so 10 people is really like one plussed up squad, right? And so the idea here is going to be to give each squad very strict requirements on, okay, you get 2 SSWs, you get 1 DMR. Bolt action sniper rifles are not permitted because dismounted light infantry do not typically use them, right? Submachine guns are not going to be permitted because typically dismounted light infantry do not have them.
Yep.
Camouflage requirements are going to be strict. If you don't have the right camo to play this event, you cannot play. There will be no armbands, right?
And that
And
makes
then
sense
the
to me,
whole
you know.
and like the whole idea is to provide as best as we can a cohesive experience where, okay, you as your squad need to take the field, and you will have your operational objectives that will be provided to you in your teams, like in your Warno. Your commander, your squad leader, whatever is going to prepare their op board that gives you your primary, secondary, tertiary objectives, etc. You're going to be given the AO like map. You'll be told sort of what you're trying to accomplish. So both what and I'm basing a lot of this material on material that's available both through declassified Canadian Forces documentation, as well as war knows and op boards that are created by Milsim West as a template, and then also working with people who are active duty or former members of the armed forces. So I've been talking to Cal about this because, of course, he's active duty. He literally works in a light infantry battalion. As well
sense.
as Chris and Jimmy from Nomad Airsoft, who did their career, or part of their career, I should say, in the U.S. Army. And Jimmy in particular was light infantry. And so they were able to provide some sense check as to like, hey, is this type of mission something that you would assign to a light infantry team? Like, would light infantry be conducting this type of operation? And if the answer is no, then I did a little bit of digging, because in some cases, like, well, not really, because in our context, you would have a platoon of this, and you'd have this, and you'd have, okay, well, we don't have that, right? So can you imagine a scenario absent this stuff where light infantry would be tasked to do something like that? If the answer is yes, then let's see about incorporating it into the scenario. If the answer is no, well, they're not going to do that, right? So are they going to be going disarming IEDs? No, that's not what light infantry would do. So that's not going to be part of their mission set.
That is
right?
That is someone's job. It requires specialized training and tools.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of this is going to be to create sort of that experience as best as we can. And so it's going to be largely based around, okay, well, you have to go and set up a patrol base, right? What does that mean? Well, players are going to find out. Some players in our community definitely already know what that means. But for some other players, this, they've been clamoring for, they're like, oh, I really want to do a milsim. Cool. Well, this is what you are going to experience is going to be, in my opinion, and the opinion of people I've been talking about, really purely condensed milsim at its sort of like, at its core. Like, it's a military simulation. You are simulating a military exercise, as within the confines of what we can do. Would it be great to be able to do like a 16-hour, 24-hour milsim, or even longer? This field owner that I'm working with, I'm sure would be fine with that, right? The challenge is, are we as a community prepared for that type of event? And my suspicion is no. Judging by the fact that, well, people are bushed after 4 hours of airsoft at frontline, there's no way they're not going to be tired after 6 hours of walking through the woods, right?
Totally. And like, I feel pretty strongly that, that the challenge of this event for most of our player base, myself included, is going to be like, okay, so like 10 hours straight is a long time for playing airsoft, for, pumping a pile of gear through the woods. And like, I have the suspicion that we're not going to be, shooting for 10 hours, for 10 hours straight. No. Right. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what people think of milsim once they've actually sort of sunk their teeth into playing an actual milsim game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something that many of them have experienced. Even those who play at Redcliffe, right? They have no idea of what it's going to be like to say, okay, now we need to navigate, over an area that we are not familiar with our squad or our fire team or whatever, and stick together, and also be on the lookout for the enemy, and also understand, okay, like, do I need to get decisively engaged here or not? And if the answer is no, because I don't think that we can win this engagement, then we need to break contact. And how do we do that? Like these are concepts that I'm really hoping to be able to put people in the leadership position to guide the team through that. Because if you get disconnected from your team, that's going to be a real problem. Like at this event, you cannot go and just do your own thing.
Yeah,
right?
It won't work. Like,
yeah, like if Jason is rolling with us, Jason Fong has a propensity to just disappear and go just do Fong stuff, right? Which is very effective in the context of an airsoft skirmish, but in the context of a milsim is a complete non-starter, right? You can't do that.
Yeah, the whole
right, because we need to be accountable for everyone, and especially I think this is different AO. It's it's a large space. It's open. Like we want people to understand where everybody else is. So I'm going to be setting up Ares Alpha for us to use an Ares Alpha event, so people will be able to just use their cell phone to figure out like where is my squad, like where are we, where are they going, like all this kind of stuff, to try and help them navigate through that space a little bit better. The space is not huge, but I definitely think it's going to, add that extra layer if you've got like a squad leader who's got their, their cell phone on their chest like this and can just click down and like look at the map and figure out like what's going where. And then I, as a game master, can put like objectives on there for them to navigate towards.
Yeah, I mean,
do all this kind of stuff,
sort of,
right?
Simulating the Blue Force Tracker kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly right.
And like, I don't know if this is in the rules off the cuff. I feel like I should remember, but like, is this going to be radios mandatory? Because I feel like that might be worth thinking about.
That's interesting. So I don't think these should be mandatory. I think if you don't have a radio, okay. So if you're the squad leader, radio is mandatory.
Yeah.
If you are a medic, I'm not going to say it's mandatory, but what the hell are you doing?
Recommended.
Because in the context of what we're doing, like the medic is the 2IC, right? So like you should have a radio. My advice would be bring one, but this is the first event that we've created a mandatory list of things to bring too. So like a safety whistle and a headlamp or some sort of flashlight is mandatory, because if you get lost in the woods and we don't know where to find you, or if you hurt yourself and you fall over and you need help and you don't have a radio, you at least have to have a whistle.
Yep.
Right.
Totally.
So
like both is better. Is better than only one.
Yeah. Or like if it gets dark and you need to navigate out of the woods and you don't have a flashlight or you don't have a headlamp, like, no, that's not a thing. And again, like this is the kind of thing, like this is a serious event. And so I expect people to prepare appropriately. And if you show up at the start of the day for the safety briefing, we are going to check your equipment. And if you don't have a whistle and you don't have a headlamp, then you have to be able to remediate that before you take the field. And if you're not able to, well, guess what? You cannot play. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you can't, see you. Like,
yeah. And like I've made it clear as well in the rule set, like you can't leave. Barring some sort of medical emergency or whatever, in which case you're probably going to leave and not come back regardless. But like you can't just pick up your stuff and go back to your car. Like that's not a thing, right? Once you're in, you're in. And if you go back to your car, you can't just come back. That's not going to be permitted.
Yeah.
There's a high degree of preparation that's required for an event like that. And I want to give players a taste of that because, when we went to Iron Horse, we did not need to be as prepared as we were, but we did take it that seriously because it was very important to us to show up prepared, right? Totally. We could have not done that. Lots of players did, but that was not us.
Yeah, I mean,
and when we go to the States in summer, it's going to be the exact same thing again. Like we are going to be dialed, right?
Yeah, and I think that value of like having your shit together is very useful. Do it, rather than the value of like, showing up and being like, well, this will be fine. And I know you and John for sure don't ever want to show up and be like, well, these guys are kind of a pain in the ass or a burden to the team, because they're inadequately prepared. So you're going to be, and I think encouraging that, like for a game like this, it's been a while, since I did 10 hours of like hiking, camping in the woods kind of thing. But like, yeah, it is the kind of thing where you want to have your shit together.
Yeah. And so I think, I don't know how the community is going to react. This event is going to be hard. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to be hard for people in all kinds of different ways. Some people might be like, no, it's fine. I'm good. Like, whatever. Cool. That's fine. But for, people might find it difficult to be as disciplined as they need to be. People might find it difficult to be on their feet for 10 hours, right? To be pushing an objective and setting up patrol bases and going on patrol and or holding watch or being super attentive, right? Super alert because you're trying to find an enemy that doesn't want to be found, right? But they're hunting you, right? Like all this kind of stuff. And then not to mention all the other objectives that are going to be created again in the context of what is reasonable for a light infantry experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be challenging, and I don't, to be honest, I don't think it's going to be for everyone, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are aspects of that sound really cool, right? Like the tension of play of like, oh yeah, you have to be on the go, be aware, don't just like go, oh yeah, I'm on watch. Well, I'm just gonna dick around on my cell phone for the next like 45 minutes, hour, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not. That's not gonna fly, right?
Yeah.
Or and like not in like the game staff's gonna come by and tell you, in fact, your team lead may not do that, but just in the fact of like when the enemy walks out of the bushes, shoots you, and continues and lights up your team, that's your fault, right? So it's a matter of self-discipline in terms of like being a good teammate.
And like the rules are going to be different at this event too, and like there's I've styled them very similar to the Milsim West rules. So the way that the medics and revives work is that if you are hit, you can get bandage. If you get hit a second time, you can get a second bandage. If you get hit a third time, then you're dead and you need a medic IV, right? Which is the water bottle. So you got to drink the water bottle or whatever. The medic has a limited supply of those that they can carry. The squad leader has a limited supply that they can carry as well to either leave at the patrol base or to resupply the medic. And then all the other water bottles, all the other IVs that are available to that team for the entire game are going to be left at that team's CCP, casualty collection point. And that is not an out of play thing. That is a resource that they need to protect, right? And if the other team captures it and takes it and then kills your team and causes you to use all of your revives, or kills your medic and your medic is unable to revive because they can't get an IV from their CCP because there's none left because the other team took them all, guess what's going to happen? Your team is just going to get wiped.
Yep.
And when the team is wiped, you have lost the game. That's it. That's the reality of it, right?
Because this is how my brain works. So if I happen to say walk by the enemy team's CCP and there's just like a pallet of water bottles there, is there anything to prevent you from just lighting that up?
No. That's what you should do, in fact. Right? Like that's in the rules. Like your CCP is capturable. So like if you walk by the enemy's CCP and you just see the water bottles hanging out, you can certainly light it up, but I would just take it. Why would you just leave it there? Just take it, move it.
Oh look, this is for me now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's some mitigation that needs to happen there. Like what is the team going to do to protect it? Right? How is it, because that's something they need to manage, right? So you need to set up a patrol base, but you also need to protect your CCP. How do you do that? And to be clear, they've been told like you cannot move the water bottles yourself, right? Like wherever you decide to place them for your CCP or wherever game, like that's where it has to stay. So your responsibility is to protect this as your exfil spot.
If the enemy whatever, finds it,
right?
They can approppriate it, but you can't wander around with it.
Exactly. Right.
Cool.
So
cool.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be fun to see how people respond to something like that. Maybe they'll be like, Phil, you know what? We thought we wanted Milsim, but we prefer McDonald's Milsim. That's fine, right? McDonald's Milsim is like Last Refuge 3 and all that kind of stuff, right? If that's what they prefer, then great. Excellent, right? But
Milsim with a McChicken.
Yeah. I'm excited to run this because, for the last 20 years, that's not something, it's always been something I've sort of like, hey, we could go to Milsim West or whatever, like it'd be cool. It's like, but we can also actually put something off that's very similar, utilizing similar rule sets. And so that's going to be, sometime in the summer, hopefully, like I said, middle of June would be ideal. But
very cool.
Yeah, we'll see how all that goes, but it's three big things to carry us through the airsoft season, the start of the airsoft season, really, because we're going to keep playing July, August, September, October, probably as well, right?
Yeah, lots and lots of fun.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening to my rambling about the three things that we're going to be running at the start of the year. Hopefully, you found this at least entertaining, if not educational, for those of you who are local. But that's all we've got for you this week. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.